We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting, chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world, and explore the stories behind their songs. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and thank you very much for joining us. Our guest this week on the podcast is Genesis Owusu. His 2021 debut, Smiling With No Teeth, marked a defining arrival on the Australian music scene, a genre-defying record that wove together funk, rap and punk, and ultimately earned him multiple ARIA Awards, including Album of the Year. In the years since, he has taken his electrifying live show around the world with the likes of Idols and Tame Impala and built a devoted global fan base along the way. He also followed up with his sophomore record, Struggler, which again won Album of the Year at the ARIA Awards. Last week, he announced that he's going to go for the hat-trick with a new album coming out soon titled Red Star Woo and the worldwide Scourge, coming out on May 15th. With singles like Death Cult Zombie and Pirate Radio already released, it is shaping up to be another hit amongst fans, and he also confirmed a global tour, including several Australian dates. On today's episode, we are stoked to be chatting with Genesis Owusu all about Red Star Woo and the inspiration behind this forthcoming record. We talk about the Canberra music scene and what it was like coming up in the shadow of his brother, his songwriting process, and how this new record will translate into the live arena. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Monique for her help with today's episode and remind everyone that the brand new Genesis Owusu record, Red Star Woo and the worldwide Scourge, comes out on May 15th. You can pre-order the record in our show notes today, and that's also where you'll find tickets to the tour. While you are on the show notes, please make sure you subscribe to This Song Is Yours and go and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We would really love it if you did. It helps us out and it keeps you up to date with all the new episodes and guests that we have coming up. We recently relaunched our playlist feature on our website, so you'll be able to find links to that as well. And with us getting ever so close to 500 episodes, there's plenty of surprises in the next few weeks. So please subscribe, follow us on socials, do all that fun stuff. But we're not going to keep you any further. Let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Genesis Owusu. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Genesis Owusu. Hello, sir. How are we?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and having a chat with us about brand new music. I will admit, from the get-go, we've always had, the podcast has been going for about 4 or so years now, and we've had requests to get Genesis on, and for whatever reasons, I think missing each other or album cycles, whatever it may be, glad that we're finally making it happen and that we're getting to chat, new music with you. It's incredibly exciting time. I believe that when people are listening to our conversation, there's also going to be the announcement that there is a brand new record from yourself, Red Star Woo and the worldwide, is it Scourge? Am I saying? Scourge. Oh, see, I'm glad that we're chatting, so I'm able to kind of verify that with you. Firstly, congratulations on a brand new album. I imagine it must be an exciting feeling to kind of have.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a hot sec. It feels like I've been hiding out. But as an artist, I always feel like as an artist in my world, I kind of only feel like I want to pop out when I actually have something to say. And now's that time. So yeah, it feels good to be back.
I absolutely love that. I definitely can appreciate that. I think that you are not an artist that kind of simply says things to hear the sound of their own voice kind of resonate around radio waves. I think that whenever there is new Genesis music coming out, it was always with a purpose and intent. I'm curious to kind of kick things off today. Is there, when you know that you're beginning a new era or starting, I guess, a new chapter, that there's a definitive line between one album and then coming into that next, is there anything that you ever do to prep a new era or to kind of to welcome or, what is it, burn sage or things like that, allowing to give it a good start to that era?
I think it usually starts with some sort of visual change, like in my actual personal life. Like Um, it's quite simple, but with Struggler, that's when I shaved my head. And I shaved my head right before I started making that album. And then I started growing my hair back right before I started making this album. And it's not like I'm making an album, so I am going to do something visually different. It's kind of just like naturally when a new chapter of my life is closing or an old chapter of my life is closing and a new one is opening, something just kind of needs to change. And I feel like there actually needs to be some sort of um, change in my actual lifestyle or just something in my everyday life. And that coincides with the change in the era musically.
I'd kind of like that though. I think that allows and even if it isn't explicitly, or as you said, the purpose of having a new era, it is kind of, it allows there to be a defining feature when looking back and kind of working out where things lie in that timeline. So I can very much appreciate that. This new era did begin with singles Pirate Radio, Death Cult Zombie, and Stampede recently, all having an air of, I want to say, defiance in a way. As said, you're not coming out of quiet kind of nature just to say things for the sake of saying them. There is a purpose and an intent with a number of these singles, and I guess railing against some of the things that are going on in the world. Not surprising. Obviously, the Genesis Owusu project has always kind of done that, and I think stood up for the little guy and allowed for other voices to be heard when going in and beginning a new album. I guess intent and knowing what you're wanting to rally against, is that ever kind of put on the cards when you're wanting to what single was it? I think it might be Death Cult Zombie. Oh, it might be Pirate Radio, sorry, that mentions Elon Musk and kind of going against him. Are there certain things that you want to discuss when you're beginning to songwrite and kind of building new songs?
Yeah. I think I pretty much always go into every album knowing what I want to say. Not maybe in the like minutia and the fine details, but I know that the overall topic of what I want to say. Like Smiling with No Teeth, I had the concept before I had the music. Struggler was literally I'd written a short story, which was essentially what the album's concept was before any of the music started. And with this album, I just was seeing the rumblings of the ground around me and the swirling sounds of paranoia around me, and I knew that was what I was going to talk about before I ever stepped into the studio.
I kind of love that. You just mentioned both previous albums from yourself, Smiling and Struggler. Incredible albums, obviously have been acknowledged with awards and acclaim over the last number of years, which has also then seen you taken to other countries, playing in front of different crowds, I believe supporting Paramore across the US. Does success, and I don't want to say success and fame, you don't seem like someone who is bothered by, I guess, that public image, but does that ever play into how you then go and create as well when you're sitting there and thinking, oh man, I just supported Paramore or this received this award. Do I have to then follow that up? Does that ever come into play in the creative process of Genesis?
It rears its head and then I just try to shove it away. Because I always remind myself that the reason I got here in the first place was by like not giving a fuck about any of that,
Mm-hmm.
and just by, when we were making Smiling with No Teeth, I feel like everyone in the room was having a great time, but there was also a unilateral mental acknowledgement that like this could go absolutely nowhere, because I hadn't heard anything like that be super successful in the Australian music scene before. It was kind of, the mental acknowledgement that like this is for us and we're doing this because it expresses something deep that we want to express. And that's kind of it. And luckily for me, other people did resonate with that. So yeah, I always keep it in my mind that the reason I'm here in the first place is just because I stayed true to myself consistently. So yeah, that's what I'm going to continue to do.
We are, if you haven't picked up on it yet, we are primarily like a songwriting and music podcast. With what you've just said about not allowing kind of those outside thoughts or ruminations to come in and affect that process, has that always been the case? Have you always been a songwriter who, to use your words, didn't give a fuck, part of my language, but yeah.
Yeah. Ever since I was a child and I was, writing short stories to then writing poetry to then writing music, it's always been a very selfish process for me. It's always been, this is almost even like a controversial thing to say, but it's like, it was never even about the process of making the music to me. It was just that music happened to be a medium where I could, for some reason, externalize the internal more fluently than I could in other mediums. So it was just, it was always a very selfish process to me. And it was always very much the way I measure success to, and this comes with great things and this comes with, maybe more jarring things. The way I measure like how good a song is how well it expressed what I was feeling, not necessarily how well it conventionally sounds. So I'll always pick the thing that more accurately expresses, the authenticity of what I was feeling over what might be a more conventionally groovy or catchy track. So that's kind of always how I've approached my work.
I think audiences these days can tell that, though, in terms of that they appreciate sincerity and authenticity. And I think that, don't get me wrong, there are a number of catchy bangers across the albums that you have put out so far. So it's not to say that the two can't coexist, but I think that is why maybe the music of Genesis Owusu has also clicked with people, is that, as you said, there wasn't anything that really sounded like it at the time. And I think that lyrics-wise, that it also did seem to click with people, that it was something that was being authentic and that was saying something that again hadn't been really discussed or heard. Do you remember that moment of, I know you said writing short stories and writing poetries. Do you remember the transition into music? What was it specifically that kind of got you into music and finding out that was the better outlet for what you were trying to externalize?
Yeah, it was my older brother. My older brother, he's 5 years older than me. It was back when we were in our parents' house still. I was probably in like year 7 and he was already making music. He'd stolen our family's like computer room and turned it into his like personal studio. So it was literally inescapable. And, being the younger brother of 5 years, I was like kind of constantly expected to follow in the footsteps. So I was trying to like kind of rebel from that. But he'd always be badgering me, hey, come on, just like lay something down. And I was already writing poetry and he was rapping. So there was like a very easy convergence between the two things we were doing. And yeah, one day he finally got me. And we started laying down our first tracks together. Our first track is still on YouTube. I won't say the name, but if people want to find it, and we shot a music video for it. I think I was 14 in the music video, and it was shot at a golf course in Canberra. But yeah, from there I kind of figured out that this actually is for me, and there are lots of different ways that I can take this thing. But yeah, if it wasn't for my older brother, I wouldn't be doing this.
I absolutely love that. What does he make of what has now kind of occurred, and I want to say that maybe not the trajectory that he's put you on. Obviously, there's a lot of work and love and effort from yourself, but what does he make of what has now eventuated?
Yeah, I mean, he's so supportive. He's extremely supportive, and he's always been supportive of me, but he's always just been supportive of everyone who is trying to do something. Like now in his regular life, he's an audio engineer, so he's still in Canberra and he's got his studio, and now his main ethos is just like finding artists in Canberra who, may not think they have a means to do what they want to do and bringing them into his studio. So he's always kind of been that kind of overriding godfather figure of Canberra music, you know. So yeah, he's always been super supportive and super proud.
I absolutely love that. The Canberra music scene, I imagine, is maybe similar to we're an Adelaide-based podcast. For context, I imagine it's maybe a similar thing to the Adelaide music scene in terms of obviously not as big of a population, a little bit more tight knit. I want to say a bit more community orientated. My only references for the Canberra music scene are yourself and the lovely shout outs to Lucy Sugarman. Can you walk us through, I guess, what that music scene was like when you were coming up, and I guess maybe how it is today, and whether the success of Genesis Owusu has allowed other and different Canberran? What is the
Canberran?
Thank you. The musicians of Canberra to come through and succeed based on the pathway that you're kind of allowing them to follow in the footsteps of.
So when I was coming up, I was in high school. I grew my first beard at 14, and it was huge. And so I was kind of like, I felt like I was living this kind of double life. So I was still in like year 8, year 9, year 10, going to school during the day and then like going into these bars at night to do these gigs with my brother. And I remember he'd always get ID'd and I'd never get ID'd. But during that time, there was kind of just like, pretty much what you described, a pretty tight-knit, specifically hip-hop community. That was kind of what I was involved with. And they all kind of centered around pretty much one venue. Because once again, in that same vein, there wasn't many venues going around. Canberra has always been a place, in my experience, and I think still to this day, where if you want to make music and you want to make art, you got to like really want it, because there isn't much in the soil of the city that is like foundationally there to necessarily lift you up. There are more government grants going these days, which is really great. And I've received a few of them, which has really helped me when I wanted to tour overseas and whatnot. But in terms of, musical foundation, venues, stuff like that, there hasn't been much. So it's always been quite a DIY city, quite a house party centered city, like gigs going on in house parties. I played my second ever gig in someone's living room. But I feel like it builds character as an artist. And yeah, if you go through that and you still want to keep doing it, like you become stronger as an artist. So I feel like Canberra has a lot of very talented people because of that.
I 100% can respect that. And I think the last thing you kind of touched on then is something that I think a lot of Adelaide musicians go through, and I imagine maybe a similar thing for, not to put words in their mouth or speak for them, but Tasmanian musicians as well, where there is that thing of I feel that there's a tiny bit of additional work that needs to be done if you really want to, because there are maybe not less opportunities, but less things going on in your city that allow you to pursue it. So I very much appreciate that insight into the city. I know, talking about playing house parties and live shows, it has been a while, I think there's been a few live dates here and there during this quiet period for yourself, but I'm wondering whether the preparation has already begun for this next era and the live iteration of it. When you are coming together with a new album, is there thoughts when it's being made of how it's going to translate live, or is that a thing where it's a problem for when the live shows kind of come and when rehearsals begin?
It was always a thing with me, almost to a detriment, where I would only enjoy a song if I could see it like going crazy live. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had to like put that aside. Like someone had to take me aside and be like, hey, just like focus on the song itself. But the live show is my favorite part of this whole thing. So that's always in my head. And like, to your question, yeah, I'm already conceptualizing and putting the pieces together for what this live show is going to be like. I've always placed the best version of my live show as like akin to a theater show. And some iterations of that get closer. Some iterations are just more kind of music and community focused. But the grandest, the grandest iterations of the live show in my head have always been more akin to a theater show where they almost have their own story and they're almost in their own world that is a companion piece to the album and the music, not just me reciting the album and the music in a live format. So yeah, I am conceptualizing. Obviously, a lot of the time it has to do with time and budget as well. So we'll see what actually is able to materialize by then. But regardless, I take the live show very seriously. So no matter what it ends up forming into, it will be a banger.
I look very, very excited to see what does eventuate. I was lucky enough to catch you a few times over the last few years. I think there was one or two of your own shows, the Tame Impala support slot when they toured previously, Harvest Rock Festival here in Adelaide. And for anyone who has seen your live show, I think they know that it is just like theatre, as you said, is I think a really good way to put it, or a companion piece, not just reciting it. It was something that I maybe had not heard many reviews before that. And then after, especially the Tame Impala one, a friend and I were just like, that Kevin guy, whatever, that support act, what an absolute mind-blowing use of theatrics of, and as you said, sometimes budget does obviously play into what you can do. And I think that the ways that Genesis Owusu has translated live previously, it doesn't necessarily have to be a high budget thing for it to be effective and it to be very memorable. So I know that there's lots of fans very excited to see this. I will mention as well, because it will be out by the time that people are hearing this, there are tour dates around the country in May in support of the record, from the 14th starting in Newcastle and then ending on the 26th in Perth from this new album. And you don't have to give us any titles at this point. You can just say, yep, I do. Is there a certain track from the record that you know is already kind of standing out as your favorite in that live space that, as you're saying, you can conceptualize it already, that there's one that you're like, oh, that is going to absolutely just explode live?
That's a great question. I actually haven't thought of that, because when I listen to the album, my favorite tracks change so often. I feel like, especially now that Stampede is out, that's going to go crazy live. There's another track called Life Keeps Going, which I think is going to go crazy once the album is out. But I don't know. I'm just excited I'm excited to hear all of it live. I'm excited as everyone else, to be honest. I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to hear it, because I conceptualize before the show, but things also grow in real time as well, as like I start performing things live, and things start mutating based on reaction and happy accidents and things like that. So things don't always end up the way they start. So yeah, I'm happy to go through the process once again.
Again, we'll make sure that there are links in today's show notes for people to purchase these tickets, because it is definitely a must-see show, regardless of what kind of music you're into. I think anyone and everyone can get into a Genesis Owusu show, and I'm very excited to see how some of these songs do translate live. In terms of, just you mentioned a second ago, the favourite kind of changes all the time. I know that it's maybe a bit of an obvious question, so I don't necessarily want to ask if there is a favourite, because that does, as mentioned, it changes for whatever reason. Maybe we'll frame it as, is there a song you're most proud of on this record that has, you wanted to really articulate something, and you've now with it coming out, you feel that you've hit the nail on the head, that it should get its flowers from people, that, yeah, there's that sense of pride in it?
I don't know if I'd necessarily term it like something that I'm the most proud of, but I think there is a song where if you wanted to encapsulate pretty much everything that I've been feeling for the last however many years in like a 4-minute piece, I think that song is on there, and it's the title track of the album, The Worldwide Scourge. I feel like it captures the sentiment in the feeling. I feel like it captures the sentiment in the lyrics. In just the whole ambience of the track. I think it's something that means a lot to me, and I hope that it still means a lot to a lot of other people when they hear it.
Okay, definitely looking forward to having a listen to it now with that added context and kind of hearing, I guess, those inner thoughts on what is sure to be a very, very, very exciting album. And I know that there is a lot of excitement around this. So excited for people to be able to purchase the record, see it on tour. Again, we'll put all these details in the show notes for people to pre-order, all those fun things that they have to do. I do want to ask today, usually we wrap things up by asking, I guess, what they're currently listening to. Genesis Owusu, what is on high rotation at the moment for yourself?
What is on high rotation? Tether by Anastasia, incredible folk singer-songwriter. I've been re-listening to Labi Sifre, also incredible folk singer-songwriter back from, the 70s. I've been listening to some Skin on Skin, some like tech house. What else? Nina Geraci, Boko Ute, great band from Sweden. Yeah, they've been in my high rotation.
Some eclectic choices there, going from Anastasia to Nina Geraci. It's quite a jump, but I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear it in my music. I listen to everything.
Did you happen to catch Anastasia? I think is touring the country at the moment, playing WOMAD and some other festivals. Did you manage to catch her live?
Yeah, she came to Canberra, and I caught her in a very intimate setting. It's great to see an artist in an intimate setting and to have the thought that if the world is just, this will be the last time that you'll see them in such a small setting because they're a superstar. Yeah, and I got that same feeling at that show.
Absolutely love that. Like very strong Tracy Chapman vibes with that record, with Tether. But Genesis Owusu, we're not here to talk about Tracy Chapman or Tether or Anastasia. We're here to talk about yourself, Red Star Woo, and the worldwide Scourge. It is out on 15th of May. And as we said, there are tour dates in May as well in support of. But thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and chatting with us about this new album.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.